Thank you very much for joining this session. I came here today to share with you some of the most recent insights we have in the area of fast fashion in India. We have a packed agenda, but please bear with me. And if I'll do a good job, by the end of this session, I will convince you that there is an easy, ready-to-use, and proven technology that can help boost margins, profit margins for fast fashion. So, few words about your speaker. That's a younger version of me. I swear there's no AI in this photo. I was privileged to see the rapid growth of Onebeat in the last few years as the VP of Sales. Before that, I was mostly in consulting, sharing my passion for TOC, the theory of constraints, with the brands in Asia and specifically here in India. If you are ever up for a late night TOC talk, I'm your guy, feel free to call me. I want to set the context for this session by sharing some quotes from the media from the last year. So it starts with fast fashion growing faster than traditional fashion. So it shows that fast fashion grew by about 40% last year as compared with about 6% with the traditional brands. Fast fashion is clearly on the rise. So I think that the Indian consumer is sending very clear signals. They like personalization. They like the saturation of the number of options that they see. They like the short life cycle and the high freshness. At the same time, they also like to buy goods at discount, and they could do a lot of it last year. So we saw last year brands are going with extensive markdowns in order to be able to sell this inventory that piled up. And accordingly, and this was mostly predominantly within fast fashion brands. And accordingly, it was projected that fast fashion brands or the entire fashion industry had to experience a reduction in profit margin. Now, profit margin is very, very difficult to get numbers, accurate numbers, because nobody really wants to share these numbers, and definitely not when they are on a downturn. But the estimation is that there was a drop of about 120 points in the profitability, which is quite considerable. So I want to make an important distinction when we talk about fast fashion, and this is why fast fashion on the title is in quotation mark. So fast fashion is considered to be a merchandising strategy, but it's not. Okay? Essentially, fast fashion is a supply chain model. A supply chain model in which brands develop the capability to convert from design to garment in a very, very short cycle. To give you an idea, maybe 30 days. I've seen examples with brands in China, local brands in China that do it as short as 15 days from design to garment and place it in the store. With this capability, they can plan to demand. They can sense demand and do the entire planning in order to replenish their stores with inventory. That's a unique capability. It's fantastic. There are few brands in India that can do it, but let's be honest about it. This is not the typical Indian fashion brand, right? Most of the Indian fashion brands that we know, many of the names that we see here, are still following a planning cycle of planning 2 to 8 seasons in a year with a long planning cycle, say about 6 months of a planning cycle. And when you are such a brand, seeing that opportunity, that fast fashion is on the rise, and you want to take a bite of this, you want to join the party, you want to take share of this pie, but at the same time, you don't want to go into the roller coaster of increasing discount and lose on profit margin, then this session is especially for you. Okay? We've designed this session trying to illustrate how we can protect the margin, boost the margin while we take some of the share of this benefit. So we described it with some quotes and with the intuition. Let's describe it more logically with cause and effect connections. So brands need to drive demand. They see what is happening in the market. They are attentive to the consumer. Accordingly, they introduce more frequent collection with bigger assortment, smaller depth, less depth, okay, per product, and shorter life cycle. As a result of that, forecast accuracy deteriorates considerably. Forecast likes aggregation. When we have less options and more depth, we have more aggregation. There's more benefit of aggregation. With less aggregation, forecast accuracy deteriorates. When forecast accuracy deteriorates, it's no wonder that we are not able to meet our sell-through criteria, the sell-through standards. And if we are not able to meet our sell-through standards, it means that we need to discount, because the next collection is already on the way, and we need to control the flow of merchandise in the store. If we increase the discount rate, no wonder that we lose profit margin, and if we lose profit margin, then we risk the entire viability of the business. Some of the stores are suddenly becoming not viable, and in order to deal with that, we need to drive more demand, and that's how we are stuck in a cycle. Okay, we call it the negative loop. Now, we definitely want to break out of this negative loop. We need to break out of this negative loop if we want to benefit from that fast fashion demand. And in order to do that, we must challenge a fundamental assumption in the model. It's not possible to do that without some fundamental challenging. And to challenge a fundamental assumption, to give you an idea, a fundamental assumption, we need to challenge one of these connections, these arrows, okay, that are creating the strong cause and effect connections. And in order to do that, we need to see reality differently. We need to use different set of spectacles, okay, to see it, for example, in a higher resolution. So let's try to do that and deep dive into one store of a fashion brand, a typical fashion brand from India. And we look at this store, at the merchandise of this store in the beginning of the season, just as the season starts. What we will likely see is that some of the products are slow movers. Whatever criteria you want to choose for slow movers is fine. You will have some products being slow movers. We mark them on the red. Some of the products that are marked in the green are fast movers. And some of the products are completely new. We don't have any statistics about them. That's a new drop of merchandise that just arrived yesterday, and we don't know how it will perform. Just for the sake of simplicity, we divided it evenly, 33% each, but there are different proportions depending on the different fashion brands. Now, what do we expect that will happen as we go along the season? Obviously, new collections will arrive, many more collections will arrive during the season. The collections, some of the products will turn out to be fast movers. They will sell fast, run out of stock with time. Some of the products will turn out to be slow movers, accumulating on shelf, okay, blocking more and more shelf space. And accordingly, we also expect to have less and less space available for freshness, for new collection, for new products. Altogether, if we take a freeze of that situation just before the end of season sale starts, what we likely to see is that most of the shelf is occupied with slow movers. Again, doesn't matter what is the criteria for slow movers that you want to choose. What we take as a criteria is the bottom 5% of sales, the product that contributed to the bottom 5% of the sale. Most of them did not contribute to any sale, some of them to very, very little. And what we see in India, in fashion, is that just before end of season sale, about 60% of the inventory in the store qualifies to this definition as slow movers. Now, it's a lot, and in order to deal with it, we fall back into the negative cycle of going into discounts, markdowns, liquidate most of this red part, and start afresh with the new season, all right? That's the season cycle that we want to prevent. Now, we need to go and change spectacles and go into the high-resolution analysis. So let's do that. If we do a deep dive into that red zone, those slow movers, the villain, then we can roughly divide the slow movers into two categories of products. One category is wrong product. This is simply bad planning. That is the planning mistake. Okay, we bought product that cannot sell from whatever reason. Those products will not sell. The other category is a category that we call right product, wrong place. We don't say it from intuition, we use science to say it. How do we know that it's right product, wrong place? It's because while it occupied the shelf space in this store, waiting to be sold on discount, in another store, it was a green product. It was a fast mover selling out of stock, running out of stock in mid-season, okay, before the end of life of this product, causing loss of sale opportunity. It's a lose-lose. One store could not fulfill its sales potential. Another store had to occupy the shelf space and eventually sell the product on discount at the end of season. Now, the nice thing about it is that when we look at our statistics, we learn that the planning error is about 10% of the inventory. So it's responsible for about 10% of the problem. The bigger part of the problem, because of the proliferation of merchandise across many stores, is the fact that we have the right product in the wrong locations. Okay? So about 10% compared to 50% is the ratio. Now, there are two very, very important insights to take from this that any fashion retailer needs to know. One is that they're trying to solve this problem with better planning, looking for better planning solution is very, very low effective, or a solution with very low effectiveness from two reasons. First of all, it's very doubtful if we can do it. But let's assume that we can. The potential of this is relatively small. It's solving only 10%, okay, or only fifth of the problem. The bigger part of the problem is the problem of execution, of allocation of inventory between stores. And what we know from this exercise is that we had the capacity in the chain to sell these products. That means if we had the technology, if we had the ability to sense the demand very, very early in the season, we're talking about fast fashion with short life cycle, 8 weeks of life for a product. So in the first 1-2 weeks, we could sense the demand, know which product can sell in which stores, and move the products around between stores. We could theoretically liquidate that entire part, 50% of the merchandise, in full price in the season. Sounds theoretically. We have some examples to show you real numbers later on in this presentation. So now we have our compass. We know what we need to do, and we want to use it by doing store transfers. Some of you that have experience in retail must wonder now if I've done all this build-up just in order to convince you to increase cost and go with the notorious store transfers that you know. So the answer is no. That's not my intention. I know very well that store transfer is a very challenging process logistically. Stores are not logistic centers. Store staff are there in order to sell and not to deal with logistics. It's all known. I know that it's a very demanding process, and I know that cost effectiveness is always doubtful with store transfers. We never know when we send inventory between stores if it will really sell or we'll eventually have to send it back or discount it. So knowing the size of the opportunity, now that we have that compass, we had to innovate. Okay? It was very clear to us that this needs to be the focus for us to develop a solution, a friendlier solution for store transfers. What we wanted to do is we wanted to do the transition from a challenging, demanding, cost driver process to a friendly, scalable revenue driver. We want store transfer not to be a patch in order to help us deal with inventory balancing, but to be a proactive tool to help us drive profitability. Okay? It's part of our fast fashion solution. So how do we do that? We needed to go back to the drawing board, identify what are the pain areas related with store transfers, and eliminate them. So the first pain area when it comes to store transfers is prediction. Ability to predict demand is very, very tough when it comes to fashion, especially fast fashion. The whole idea of fast fashion is to go with big assortment, low volume. If we don't have volume, how can we predict, forecast? If I bring you back to the statistic courses you had in university, forecast requires signals, okay? Signals, which means sales. And if we don't have enough signals, there's no forecast. Forecast significant statistics is going to be very, very low. It's all relying on noise. So we don't know what really will sell and where. So we had to deal with that, eliminate the need to do a forecast, to come up with other technology that will help us predict demand very early in the season. The second problem is the problem of cost effectiveness. So when we send product, how do we know that this product will sell? So we needed a robust tool that will tell us which are the cost effective transfers. And the third thing is optimization. Optimization refers here to the number of possible trips that you need to do. Again, apologies for that. I will not use the statistics course from university anymore. That's the last time. But if you go back to your statistics course and try to remember how many trips, how many possible trips you can do in one cluster of 30 stores. And one cluster of 30 stores is something that you can have only in Bangalore. Okay? Do you have an idea how many possible transfers we can do? I'll remind you. 30 times 29 divided by 2. That's the answer. 435 different trips will go between 30 different stores. This is not viable, right? It's not possible. So the challenge of optimization here is how we reduce the number of trips to the minimum number of trips with the highest cost effectiveness, that we know for sure that we are doing these in order to help us improve profitability, to make it something that is chunkable, that we can do more frequently. So I'll go over one by one. I'll explain a little deeper the way we do it and what is the technology that we use. And then I'll show some examples. So let's start with the first thing. We said on the prediction side, we said we need to go away from forecast. So what we do instead is we use an algorithm called short-term prediction. The idea of this algorithm is that instead of collecting signals and build the forecast, we identify consumption pattern of SKUs, of products in stores, and then we can use AI to cluster SKUs or products that have similar consumption patterns, and by this improve the statistics. And with this, we can get a reliable prediction very, very early in the season. Our standards today is to get it on the first or second week of the life of the SKU. If we already do that, then we know very early which product can sell and at what speed in which store. It helps us take faster decisions. Coming to cost effectiveness. So just to remind you, we are talking about fashion. We don't just send products. Products are styles, color, sizes. What we send eventually are sizes, right? So we need to define a criteria that makes sense to decide which sizes to move between stores, from which stores to other stores. So there are few thresholds that we need to decide. The first threshold, for example, can be related to a life cycle definition. When do I start to do store transfers? Okay, what is the criteria? Would I do it after 30 days in the life cycle of the SKU, from the first 15 days, 45 days, and so on? So it needs to be in such a way that it's before the end of life of the product, that I'll be able to rotate it and sell it at full price in other stores that need them. Another criteria can be to what extent this product is broken. Again, we're dealing with sizes. You know, a typical set that sells out the pivotal sizes. Let's assume I have small, medium, large, and XL. And I sold medium and large, and these are the pivotal sizes. The sales of this set drops by 80% already, 70 to 80%. So I can define the criteria to what extent the sets are broken in stores in order to start a consolidation process of sizes. I need to also define a criteria saying what is cost effectiveness for me. Okay? If a set sells one piece in 10 days in one store, and then it sells 1.1 pieces in 10 days in another store, does it mean that I need to move it from store A to store B? Unlikely, right? So I need to have some more tolerance. We need to decide what is the additional sales potential that justify to call it a candidate for transfer. Now, once I have these thresholds defined, the next thing is defining the right store clusters. So most Retailers will go with a geographical definition within Bangalore, within a state, say within Karnataka as a state, or within region, or the criteria can be defined by business units. It can be specific franchisee stores, specific channel, my own stores, and so on. We define clusters of inventory of stores that can share inventory between them, and all the transactions will happen and the optimization will happen within these clusters. And then, if you had experience with store transfers, one of the pain points is also dealing with leftovers. So you send the sizes that you want to stores, but then you are left with a list of a big amount of leftover sizes that you don't know what to do with, so we also need to define the criteria of what to do with these leftovers. Once we have all these, we can go for optimization. Now, we have a prediction that is much more accurate very early in the life of the SKU. We know which are the candidates for store transfers and which make sense, which are the cost-effective candidates. Now we can run optimization. What is the idea of running optimization? The tool identifies the most cost-effective trips, try to focus on minimum number of trips, and consolidate movements between these trips. I can move a product that is slow mover from store A to store B, but I already have a trip from store B to store C. So can I identify a slow-moving inventory from the same product in store B to move it to store C and consolidate this into less and less number of trips? Okay, the idea is that the more we reduce the number of trips, the better, because we don't just need to spread inventory between stores, we want to have a cost-effective process that is manageable. So with this, I'll show you a quick example of how it looks. This is just for illustration. So here you don't see the font is very small, but we have 18 stores. 18 stores of a cluster can share 18 times 17 divided by 2. It's more than 200 potential trips. With the optimization run, the software identified only 22 trips that are really cost effectiveness, that it can serve, say, 70–80% of the need only with these trips, and it attached a number of the estimated sales increase related to these trips. So this is $13,000 of value, and you can see this breakdown trip by trip. So we decide which trips we want to take, and then it becomes a more manageable process. If we do a deep dive into one of the products that run between these trips, then we will see something like that. So we have the product across sizes. You saw small, medium, large, and XL. And these are some set of stores and some set of stores on the top. We basically have the light blue here is the inventory that stays, that is not moving, stays in the store. And the blue is the inventory that we pick. Those are the candidates for transfers, those that we take, the donor stores, if you want. The green one is the receiving stores. So if I'll just take a quick example, okay, this store here have sizes medium, large, and XL in stock, and it sells about 3 pieces in 100 days, 1 piece per month for the entire product. It's very low, right? It's not viable for fast fashion. I have to discount it. So instead what we do, we take this product and give it to this store, okay? And in this store that sells about 3 products in 10 days, which is about 1 product every 3 days. Makes more sense, it's more viable. Then this entire set goes to that store that currently, before the transfer, have only 1 piece of size medium, which means I cannot even display it properly in a visual display in order to sell this size. So by this, I consolidate sizes together, put them in stores that can really sell them with the hope that they will sell them at full price before we need to get into discounts. So far, so good. I want to show you some data, real data, in order to prove that point and to see that it's a process that can really help us improve profit margins. So this data is coming from our data analysis from India from 2024, from last year. So we ran this process with different fashion segments. So we have fast fashion, women's wear, ethnic wear, premium ethnic wear, and footwear. And what we measure in order to see that the process helps us, we measure what was the sell-through of the products that were transferred between stores 30 days after the transfer. So that means I open the clock when I transfer, 30 days later, I want to see how much of it got sold. If the process is good, it needs to be beyond my expectation for sell-through, right? It shouldn't be the average sell-through of the company. So what we've seen among fast fashion brands, we saw a 56% sell-through in 30 days. Women's wear, 52%. Premium ethnic wear, very similar, almost 50%. Footwear, 43%. Maybe you are not used to these numbers. I must tell you, footwear is a slow category, okay? In footwear, usually sell-through is measured in 6 months, not in 1 month. 43% sell-through in 1 month, it's an amazing number for footwear. So the sell-through rate are high. That means that on average, more than 50% of what we transfer sells in 1 month itself. So it means we have enough flexibility to still sell it at full price. Let's do a drill down to fast fashion because that's also the topic for this discussion. And then we'll try to understand what did we transfer? Why did it sell? Why did we achieve 56% sell-through? So if we look at the profile of the donors, okay, the products that were transferred to other stores, they were 80% likely to be slow movers. So you remember the reds and the greens, so 80% of them were reds, 20% of them were greens. There are some fast-moving products that were in surplus in stores, and they were riding the wave to go to other stores also as part of the process, but majority were slow movers. Slow movers are mostly products with no demand at all. Some of them have very, very little demand. These products that were transferred in 30 days, those that sold, we see at what discount they got sold. So some of them were already part of a discount scheme, so they sold at, 20% off, and some of them even 50% off and so on. But 65% of these products that got sold in this 30 days slot were sold at full price. And this is very, very important news to us because that's what we want eventually. We want to improve profit margins. So long story short, 56% sell-through in 1 month, out of which most of these products were slow movers and most of these were sold at full price. So one last piece of data, which is the most important thing, is how much does it worth? Okay, how much did it help us? Because I share with you just operational measures, looking at sell-through and looking at discount. This graph eventually shows you what was the contribution to sell of store transfers within fast fashion across different clusters of stores. Okay, we took one brand across 5 different clusters across India. It is divided between different geographical clusters of stores. There were clusters that are smaller with smaller stores and clusters that are bigger with bigger stores. And what we see is that the contribution of store transfers ranges anywhere from about 2%, this is volume, this is value, this is 1.8% in volume, 2.2% in value, in smaller clusters like cluster 3, to as high as 7% in big clusters. Okay? Big clusters are clusters with bigger store, with more stores, there's more meat, there's more opportunity to move inventory around, giving overall an average of 5% additional sales in volume, 6% accountable, eventually account for 6% additional sales in value. You do the math, okay? Most of you here are from retail, you know how to do the math. Do the calculation, additional 6% sales in value, what would be the contribution to profit margin? And I promise you, you'll reach a double digit figure eventually. It's something that can be considerable. I think with this, we are summarizing this session. I hope that, I know that it was quite intense, but I hope that I gave you a glimpse into that opportunity and that you understand that by now that there is a big opportunity lying there, okay? If you have more questions that you want to ask, feel free to scan us or come visit us at the booth. We'll be happy to share with you more. Thank you very much. If you want to, we have time. If you want to ask questions. Only easy questions.
Absolutely. Firstly, thank you very much for a good masterclass. I have a question around definition of slow-moving inventory. If we were to draw a parallel with digital world, the definition of slow-moving inventory is not a function of just a sales, but it's a function of how much discovery has been provided to a product, how much sales divided by the discovery that is offered, and every brand, every company has their own threshold. In the offline world, is there any framework to identify this, identify the gaps in the retail planogram or strategy, or is it expected as a, at a plain same discovery for every product?
Okay, so that's a complete philosophy by itself that I touched here on a nutshell. Okay, we do a lot of emphasis on slow movers, and we define slow movers differently for different industries. For example, we also work with jewelry. In jewelry, everything is slow mover, right? But between all the slow movers, you can identify some that are faster, right? So yes, we have different criteria. It's a topic by itself. The short answer here is that we want to go here with something that is simple, because we don't need to identify all the possible slow movers and do the maximum about it. We just need the low-hanging fruits, right? I don't need more than 7% additional sales from this process. Okay, I can take it to 20, but there's no point in doing that. However, as looking at slow movers, it's a process by itself, and that's where we provide extensive dashboards to try to understand why these products are slow movers. Okay, that's a different ballgame. In fast fashion, to be honest about it, there's no time. Okay, you really need to focus on flow. So if the life cycle of the product is 6 weeks, you don't have time to do this drill down. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you.
Thank you.